one little point, a word that I correct fairly often is articulatory, right? And one student said articulatory. And I said that's okay in some versions of British English. I have heard it that way on the BBC because they actually use that word. But my British teacher is watching our videos. So that means if I ever make a little mistake, my pronunciation's off, I'm going to hear about it, which is good. That's quality control for all of us. He enjoys it. He's teaching English to a friend in Spain. So he says, you know, that's really useful, and he'll be listening carefully. So we all need to be extra careful, and we're getting quality control, like I said. But for the word articulatory, he said he does not say articulatory. He doesn't say that, and he didn't believe it was British, but I have heard it. He says articulatory, articulatory. We say articulatory. So how many syllables do I have? Articulatory. I have 6. And how many does my British teacher have? Articulatory. He has 5. The last one is sort of a semi-syllable, articulatory. Tree. It's not really tree, it's tree. There's a very short schwa. It's hard to count them. But that's the way he says it. Okay. Sometimes native speakers will say, no, we don't say that. But I know I've heard it on the BBC, and that's not the only example. Another example is a word. It's called capsicum. Does anybody know what capsicum is? It's 甜椒, like 甜红椒, 青椒, 都是甜椒类的. Now, I see it in cookbooks from the UK, and I've heard it from British speakers, capsicum, but my British teacher said he'd never heard of it. And they use it especially in Australia, but also the UK. So just because we're a native speaker, it doesn't mean that we know everything that native speakers say. We come from a specific region. Our experience is limited. We don't always know everything about our language. I often learn from my students. And there are some things that I hear that my British teacher says he hasn't heard. So just keep that in mind. We need to be realistic about it. We're going to be working on IPA for Chinese very soon, so make sure you've gone over those, especially those 2 pages of Li Wenjiao Lao Shi. Go over them very carefully. It's a lot of material, but those 2 pages are not a lot. Start playing around with it and see if you can start transcribing some Chinese yourself, just motivated by yourself, into IPA. So when we do it, you'll have some questions ready. You will certainly run into problems and questions because the system is not precise or clear-cut. Anytime we transcribe something, we are making choices. I choose to do things a certain way because, in my perception, they work well. And they reflect what I believe I hear. Other people transcribing Mandarin, for example, will have a different system. It does not mean that anybody is wrong. It means that we either are emphasizing different aspects, either we want a broader transcription or a more narrow transcription, or something that's very much a compromise. Mine is pretty much a compromise. Neither very broad nor very narrow. It's somewhere in between. But I think, for me, it works. So you will certainly have problems. If you play around with it ahead of time, you will have questions ready, and we can get through learning how to write Chinese and IPA faster and more efficiently and more effectively. Did you all hear me? Can you please put that in your notes and your assignments? Play around with it yourself. Try to start transcribing some Chinese words into IPA based on those 2 pages by Li Wenjiao Lao Shi. Then you will have questions ready because you might not know how to do everything. Okay? And you're going to be learning the way I do it. It's not the only way, but it's one way, and it's a starting point. If you want to change it later for different purposes, that's fine. Have you all read about tat and taught and cot and caught? Pages 25 and 26 on the website. If you have not, please do it. I know from the test on Chapter 1, some of you did not do the pinyin tutorial very carefully. It's a very good tutorial. Some of you are my former students, and you've done it once already, and some of you still got some wrong. So I think most of you need to review Hanyu Pinyin. The part of the test where you did the best that I've seen so far is writing down the IPA symbols when I give you the place and manner and state of the vocal folds, the place and manner of articulation and state of the vocal folds. Many of you got a perfect score on that, 45%. But on the pinyin, many of you made many mistakes. I'll just give an example. Is this correct? Alex? No, we do not use 2点 U with two dots. In other words, it's an umlauted U, U umlaut. We never use it after she. And also, remember I told you in class that the 注音符号 are really funny on that? They look like 凶, but you don't say 凶, you say 凶. And they break up that diphthong clearly in Hanyu Pinyin. Remember this. It looks like this in, right? 注音符号是这样子. It looks like ü, but we don't use ü. We go to io. That's an example of the kind of mistakes I found. Another one is 刚才的才. Is that correct? No. This would be correct in modified Wade Giles, but we're not doing Wade Giles. What should it be? C-A-I. These are two examples of the mistakes I found. So all of you write it down. Review Hanyu Pinyin. It needs to be perfect. 0 mistakes. It's a very mechanical exercise. If you know 注音符号 and you speak Chinese, Hanyu Pinyin is a snap. But you have to put in a little time. And be careful. Think before you write. Note the exceptions. 它跟注音符号不一样的地方要特别留意。一样的地方会比较好记。可是像这个不一样的地方，你要特别留意。Is Korean, the Korean writing system, is it an alphabet or a syllabary? Anybody care to express an opinion? Is there anybody who believes it should be called a syllabary? Raise your hand. Why? Have you studied some Korean? In order to call it a syllabary, it needs to have at least 2 segments written with 1 syllable. Do you have that in Korean? Is there any symbol that represents 2 segments? For example, a diphthong. Well, diphthong is kind of a murky kind of area to talk about. Like in 注音符号, an, that's 2 different segments in 1 symbol. So that's like a syllabary. Is there any symbol in Korean that does that? Wendy?
I learned Korean and I went to my Korean teacher yesterday, and this kind of symbol that really combines these segments together, but they call it one symbol. So to learn is also called alphabet.
Okay, basically, I can tell you that the Korean writing system is an alphabet. It's an alphabet, yeah. It's a very well-designed one overall. It's widely admired in the world, and I think there's a Korean alphabet day that linguists kind of note. We don't really celebrate it with a party and costumes, but we do have a day. I forgot what it is, but if you look on the internet, you can find it. When we celebrate, I think it was the promulgation of the Korean alphabet in the 16th century. Okay, so that's one thing that Koreans are dually proud of, and the world recognizes. What's left for today is to finish Chapter 2 and go through the performance exercises. So next reader. I think before we start, we better remind everybody where we are.
Second to last paragraph on page 40.
40, good. Okay.
One of the principal problems in transcribing English phonetically.
Phonetically, not phonetically. We can get rid of that schwa. Phonetically.
Phonetically is that there are more vowel sounds than there are vowel letters in the alphabet.
Everybody get that? Did that sink in? We don't have that many vowel letters. How many do we have in English? We have 5. When we're kids, we memorize A, E, I, O, U, and sometimes Y. And when my mom was a kid, they said, and sometimes W, because like owl, O-W, it's sometimes part of a diphthong. So A, E, I, O, U, Y, W, 打死7个. But how many vowels do we have in English? Let's count them. How many do we have? It depends on the variety of English. And in American, for example, it depends on whether you merge a and a or not, which I don't. I keep them separate. How many vowels in English? It's just like somebody asking you, how many 注音符号 symbols are there, right? 很多人会傻在那里，没有数过。Anybody know how many vowels we have in English? Find it quick. Count them or find it. Let's wait a while, okay? Let's wait till we get it. We're going to keep on talking about vowels. But remember, we have a question to ask. How many vowels are there in English? And we also need to know how many consonants there are. Okay, continue.
In a transcription of the English word see as see, the E represents a similar but not identical sound to that in Spanish or Italian C.
All right, so we're going to have to stop sentence by sentence when there's something important. We transcribe the word see, hi, S-E-A, as S-I. And that works pretty well for speakers of a lot of languages. For example, if you speak Spanish or Italian, it looks just like their own spelling. It's not exactly the same, but it's very close. So, sí, señor, sí, it's very close to the English sí. Okay?
But unlike Spanish and Italian, English differentiates between vowels, such as those in seat, sit, and heed, hid. The vowels in seat, heed differ from those in sit, hid in two ways. They have a slightly different quality, and they are longer.
Did you note that? Usually when we're talking about vowels that contrast in this way, how do we describe it? When we're comparing E and I, what is it called in the textbooks and in school? One is long and the other is short. Is that the only difference? No. What is another really important difference between the two? Quality. And that is a general way of describing how they're different. But if we want to be really concrete, what enables us or what causes the difference in sound between those two sounds, E and I? What's different that's causing that difference in sound? Amy?
The shape of our mouth?
Can you be more precise? The position of the tongue, 就是这么简单. And that's what decides all vowels basically, is the position of the tongue. For E, the tongue is higher, very front. For I, it's a bit lower and a bit more back. Right there. In addition, it's also shorter. So keep those in mind. Long and short are not just long and short. It's not just duration in time. When we hear long and short, a lot of us think about how long it lasts in time. E is long, like si, and then for sit, it's sit. But is S-I-T, sit? Sounds like Cantonese. No, it's sit. It's a totally different quality in addition to being shorter. So when you see long and short, remember it is not just duration. It is also quality. And that is not understood by many, many people who probably have been learning English for many years. Okay?
Because the vowels in sit, hid are somewhat like those in seat, heed, they are represented by the symbol I, a small capital I. In an earlier edition of this book, the difference in length was also shown by adding the symbol, which, as we will see later, can be used when it is necessary to distinguish sounds that differ in length. Adding this symbol to some vowels shows additional phonetic detail, but it goes against the principle of showing just the differences between phonemes, and will not be used when making phonemic transcriptions of English in this book.
Very good. Let's make sure we understand everything. So, first of all, we call that a length mark, those two little triangles. One is right side up, one is upside down. And we will use those. But do we use them to distinguish different phonemes? Do we use that length mark to distinguish different phonemes? No. We only show additional phonetic detail. 那个只是要一个装饰，一些额外的讯息. It does not change that phoneme into a different phoneme. It simply adds more detail. So for seat, we can put it there. Or maybe we won't put it in seat, but how about seed, 种子? For seat, we can use just a regular dotted I. For seed, we can put that mark in there to show that it's longer because the next sound is voiced. Very good. So seat, we'll use a plain I if we're adding more detail. If the next sound is a duh, if it's voiced, then we might put that mark in there to remind the reader that because the next sound is voiced, this is longer. But there was somebody who did use the length mark to show different phonemes. Who was it? What was his name? Go ahead, Jerome. Daniel Jones. Everyone remember Daniel Jones? He's very, very important in the history of phonetics. Daniel Jones, the DJ system. They use the length mark to distinguish E from I. Yeah. It says here that if we would add it, it would go against the principle of showing just the differences between phonemes. So we'll use a different symbol for a different phoneme. All the other stuff is phonetic detail. We're not going to worry about it right now. Next reader.
The vowel in...
I still haven't heard your name.
Yan Qian.
Oh, don't you want to use your English name?
I prefer to use my Chinese
Okay,
name.
that's fine.
The vowel is...
The what? How do we say that?
The vowel.
Vowels.
Vowels.
Ow.
Owls.
Everybody, vowels.
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 Watch the Z sound of the S. Okay.
The vowels in words such as he, bet, lay are transcribed with a sequence.
Transcribed
with a sequence of two symbols.
of two symbols, an E and a short I. Okay.
Indicating that for most speakers of English, these words contain a different
Diphthong. Everybody, let's try this. Watch. Take it slowly. Don't jump in right away. Listen to it carefully. Let's use the echo this time. Remember the echo? Diphthong. Don't jump in after me. Listen to the echo, then repeat. So I'll give you the signal. Diphthong. Good. And the other thing I noticed was contain, not con. Con. That's a schwa. Everyone, contain. Go ahead.
The first
Can
element.
you try that again? These words.
These words contain.
Not these. 不要那么重哦. These words.
These words
Yeah.
contain.
Yeah.
Contain a diphthong.
A
Diphthong.
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 Not thong. Thong.
Thong.
Diphthong.
Diphthong.
Not D. It's di. Once more.
Diphthong.
You're saying D. We want di.
Diphthong.
There you go. That sounds pretty good.
The first element in this diphthong.
Yeah.
Diphthong.
Uh-huh.
Is similar to sounds in Spanish or Italian.
Not Spanish.
Spanish.
Good.
Or Italian.
Italian 一样的问题，那个 A 是 A. Spanish, Italian.
Spanish and or Italian. They use the letter E, such as the Spanish.
E, remember continuation rise? The letter E.
The letter E, such as the Spanish word for milk, which is written leche and pronounced. The second element in
Pronounced what? 不要跳过去啊 That's IPA. You can read it.
leche.
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 Uh-huh.
The second element in
Second, 不是 second.
the second elements in the English
In
word.
the English.
In the English
Right.
words, hey, bet, lay is E.
It.
The symbol used for transcribing the
Transcribing?
the vowel in hid.
Hid. Okay, you need to watch out for vowels. So don't read I as E, and don't read A as A. 刚 Spanish Italian 啊，应该是 Spanish and Italian. This is important. This will probably also be in the test, so pay attention. We don't have a monophthong A in English. We only have the diphthong AE. Although some people make it sound like a monophthong, I told you before. That's why KK uses only one symbol. But I say AE. For example, lay, late, laid. You can hear very clearly that it's an AE, it's a diphthong. We write it like this. Ladefoged says that we use this symbol I, but it's not really an I, and it's not quite an E. It's somewhere in between I and E. Listen to the way I say it. It's almost like in Mandarin, so you can do it yourself. Lei, lei. Now, it's not lei, it's not it, it's not so low. And it's not lei, it's not so high. But for me, it's closer to e. It's somewhere in between those two. And we mentioned before that the elements in a diphthong almost never exist what? This sound and this sound, the way we say it in the diphthong, do not exist what? As a 单元音, monophthong in English. We do not have an A in English at all. And this I is not really an I, it's closer to E. So whatever the elements are in a diphthong, normally we don't have either one. That's exactly the same as a monophthong. And I mentioned it before, that's why we write I like this, and we don't write it with this kind of an A. 不是这个, we don't write that, we write this, because it's not I, it's I. 那个 R 是比较前面中间一点. Let's practice the Spanish word for milk, because that one is a monophthong. It sounds like English A, but it's not a diphthong. It's just a pure monophthong, A. Everybody, leche. 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 Not leche. That's a real American sound. Leche. It's leche. Leche. Good. It'll probably be in the test. So make sure you know that Spanish word and you know that that's a monophthong. It's not a diphthong. And that's where Americans very often make pronunciation mistakes in any language they learn. They like to turn every vowel into a day. We love to diphthongize vowels. We bring that over from our native language. So leche is the way many Americans would say it, probably Brits as well. But leche, leche. All right, next.
My name is Alice. Two symbols that are not ordinary letters of the alphabet, a and a, are used for the vowels in head and had, respectively. The first is based on the Greek letter epsilon and the
Epsilon?
Epsilon.
Not long, lan.
Long.
No, no. La n, n 点的 n, lan.
Long.
Epsilon.
Epsilon.
That's an American pronunciation. Epsilon.
And the second.
Say it again on the
Okay.
Greek letter.
On the Greek letter epsilon.
Lan.
Long.
No. You're having trouble. You're putting a velar there. You're saying long. Epsilon. You're saying n 点. You're saying 肮脏的 ang, but we want n 点的 n. Epsilon.
Epsilon.
Louder.
Epsilon.
It's not o, it's a. Number one, 母音是 a. 第二个是 n 点的 n. An.
Once
more. 你的舌尖你有没有顶到 an 有没有 Okay, now it sounds right. 刚刚就没有。好
Epsilon.
Lan.
Long.
Okay, you need to practice that. Mark
Okay.
that. You need to practice. Even if you get it right, it's not very natural yet. Go ahead.
And the second on the letters A.
An, not on. An.
The second on.
No. A n 完全一样的问题，完全一模一样的问题。An. On the letters.
On the letters.
Not on. An. Yeah.
The letters A and E joined together. They may be referred to by the names epsilon and ash.
Okay. Sometimes I've called it digraph, but here they call it epsilon and ash. So 道三, we use the Greek letter name epsilon. Everyone, epsilon. Epsilon. All right, and that 蝴蝶 A, the butterfly A in English, it's even easier than Chinese. Ash. Hui, 灰烬的灰, ash. Okay. Next.
Wendy.
Okay.
Most Americans use the same vowel sound in the words heart and hot, and can use one form of the letter A. They would transcribe these words as heart.
Transcribe what?
These
Yes.
words as heart and hot.
All right, note that, because a lot of you are confused by O in spelling. H-O-T in American is the ah sound. Somebody once said, you don't have many words with the ah sound in English, in American English, do you? I said, we have lots of them, like hot, pot. All the words that rhyme with it, spot, rot. 那个 o 后面没有 e，很多都念 ot. But this sound is kind of unstable because some people will say, for example, hot in America as well, and it's hot in British, a totally different vowel. But in American, father, hot, they have the same vowel, ah. And it says that we could use the same vowel for both heart and hot. Those are ah. With the r, it changes a little, but close enough. Go on.
But some East Coast Americans and speakers of British English who do not pronounce r sounds after a vowel distinguish between these words by the qualities.
Distinguish between these words. These 不要重. Almost all of you stress the word these, and you should not, usually. Okay, so transcribe these words as, and here it's a different one. Distinguish between these words by.
Distinguish between these words by the qualities of the vowels and have to use two different forms of the letter A. Letter A, yeah. Mm-hmm. They would transcribe these words as hot and
hot.
Hot.
There we go. That upside down A without a cap on it, that's a British sound. We don't have an American, though some people on the East Coast of the U.S. do have something like it. It's O. And it's not the kaiko O. So, for example, the word 源头 is sauce. Sauce. It also is the word for 酱料, sauce. That's O. Pork, etc. But this is hot. 嘴巴比较开一点，没有那么圆，然后舌头比较低，蛮后面也比较低。Everybody hot. 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 That's the upside down A in British. Normally, at least in my English, I don't have it. Some East Coasters may have it. Everyone clear on that now? You're going to need that symbol for British English. And this is where the vowel systems of British and American get quite confusing. Now, my British teacher told me that I had them straighter than he had. I think it's just because I've heard British so much that an echo tells me that that's the way it is in British. But there are many sounds we don't distinguish in English, in American English, that they do distinguish in British English with this vowel. So be aware of that. Okay, I'm going to summarize part of it myself now to kind of hurry us through. Most speakers of British and many Americans distinguish between caught, not. Not is not, everybody. A lot of you say other funny pronunciations. But in my dialect, everyone, not. Ah. A lot of you say not. Is that right? Something like that? That's British. Something like British. It's not, caught, not. We use the open O for this sound, for aw in American. In British, American caught. In British, it's caught, colt. And it sounds like court. 朝廷. 对. So, 那是 O, 嘴巴是比较小一点，比较圆一点，舌头比较高. Many Midwestern and Far Western American speakers do not need to use this symbol because those two sounds have, ah and ah have what in the U.S. Midwest and West? For many people, they have merged, 合并了，已经变成一个音了。本来是啊啊两个音，现在对很多人来说只有一个音，合并了。So they don't need the symbol ah. 那个开口 o 根本用不上。And then we have another special symbol. And this is one I want to mention because I saw it in your tests. When you are writing the short U, don't write this. Everybody see that? Do not write this. What is missing? The little bars at the top. Everybody write this. Do not write this. 这一次没有算错，下一次开始这个会算错。Okay, even if you can say that somebody else does this or blah, 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 I am asking you to do it this way so it's perfectly clear. Write the sound this way, not this way. Everyone clear? Okay, how? I noticed that in the test, for some of you anyway. Then there's a vowel that we're going to talk now about the vowel in ho-do code. In American English, it's close to O, but it is a diphthong. It's not just O. If it were a monophthong, it would sound funny to my ears. Ho, do, cold. Sounds really weird. In some dialects, it is a monophthong. In Hawaii, some speakers in Hawaii make it a monophthong. For me, it is a diphthong, like ojo, the o, just like Mandarin, but longer. So ho, everyone, ho, do, code. Watch this, because in Taiwan English, very often you make it into a monophthong. Ho, do, code. I hear that a lot in Taiwan English. All right, in Southern British, Standard British English, they have more of an O sound to it. So it's ho, do, code. Code. Want to try it? Mine is not perfect, but you'll get the idea. So ho, do, ko. When I say it, my British teacher says I overdo it. 有点夸张, just so you know. We already know what a schwa is. We'll talk about it later. And the final element of the diphthong in words such as ho and code is close to but not exactly An upside down letter V is used for the vowel in words like bud and hut. We often call it wedge. Wedge is called in Chinese 蝎子, but some people call it 蝎子. 字典音是蝎子, but a lot of people say 蝎子. It means wedge, 一个三角形的东西可以用来插入来把两个东西插开, that's a wedge. And this sound is very different in British English from American, as I've told you before. In American, it's close to a schwa. So, for example, we have bud. Everyone, bud? Hut. In British, it's closer to ah. So, bud, hut. All right. Then we have a 3. It's a reversed epsilon, but we don't need to say reversed epsilon in Chinese, 因为 epsilon 已经是倒3, 所以变成一个倒3. 那就是干脆说3. Is that right? You don't think that's funny? I thought it was a little funny. All right. 它就像个3, 1、2、3的3. We use that in British only, not in American. Without the R, we use it only in British for these words like this. Everybody, pert. Pert means very energetic. 很干脆又很精力充沛, that's pert. Everyone, pert. Bird. Curt. Curt means very short and not very polite. He was very curt with me. 他讲得很快, 那些客气话都不讲了. So, meet me at 5 o'clock, and then he ran away. He was very curt. All right. And then it's similar to the word for short in French and Spanish, if you know what those are. We can use the symbol, and this is the way KK does it. We can put a little hook on it to make it a rhotic sound, so it becomes So if an sound is stressed in KK, and we're going to follow that, we're going to write it like this. 有重音的话用这个，没有重音的话用这个. That's the difference. If it is stressed, like in bird, curt. What was the other one? Bird, curt, pert. We'll use this one. 3 with a hook. If it's unstressed, like teacher, writer, we'll use this one. I heard something very funny today on the radio. When it said is in Chinese what? 这个词尾是中文的什么？者, right? 什么者? Like 读者 is reader. Is that right? 这个是者. Someone on the radio this morning said promote 者. 那个 promote 者，提倡的人，就是行销的人 promote 者。我愣了一下，他那个 code mixing 就是已经很深入了。Okay, promote 者。I listen to Fadi in the morning. I get lots of really good examples. 我有一堆那个台式英语 that I'll share with you on another time. Okay, so this little hook here I make a little, it looks like a sideways V, but it's called R coloring. R coloring. 儿化韵 in Chinese. 儿化韵. Rhoticization, you can call it rhoticization or R coloring. 儿化韵. All three mean the same thing. All right, for I, the first element in I, this vowel, it says that it's close to the vowel in cat or somewhere between the vowel in cat and the vowel in hard. 它是 cat 这个母音跟 hard 这个母音之间的一个母音。That's why we use a different symbol. 所以它也不是 a 也不是 a. It's somewhere in between. We have a separate symbol. And same for ow. It's similar, but also the a in ow is not exactly as the same as the a in I. In every diphthong, all of the sounds get a little changed because they're influenced by the other vowel. Did everybody catch that? So the a is going to be influenced by the e or the is sound in I, and it's going to be influenced by the sound in ow. Okay, and the second part of ow is also not exactly it's just sort of close. And then we have oi, kaiko o plus I. For me, it's more towards e, boy. 它是蛮高的 boy, but not completely. I don't say boy, 没有那么高. So again, we've got these I-mei sounds that are neither flesh nor fowl. Neither flesh nor fowl. 它也不是这个 e, 也不是那个 I. It's something else. Similar, but not the same. Remember, in Taiwan English, you often make which sound too long in this diphthong? In the word boy, that diphthong, which of the two parts of the diphthong usually gets too long in Taiwan English? The all part. Don't say boy. That's a little more British, but not quite. In American, it's quite short. Everyone, boy. Poison. Toy. Okay, good enough. We're on page 42. We've already been over this. The remaining words in table 2.2, let's just flip back very quickly. We've got special diphthongs in British because they have dropped the R. In American, we have the R. It's not pronounced in British. It's been replaced by a schwa. This will also probably be in the test, so make sure you're paying attention to this. And one thing that people get wrong almost every year, I will tell you now, so please don't make this mistake in the test. They will say that, for example, in the word car, Brits don't pronounce the R. Therefore, we get a schwa. Is that correct? How do we say this word in American? How do we say it in British? Ka. Ka. All right, do you hear a schwa? I don't hear one. So everyone always picks this example too. Probably 十几年，每一次都有人选 car 这个字做例子，说英式母音后有 r 不发音会变成 schwa. Is it true in all cases? Now you know that in this case it is definitely not true. Car has no schwa diphthong, does not become a diphthong, let's put it that way. The vowel does not become a diphthong, there is no schwa. It is simply ka. It's a very long ah sound. Okay, got that? Don't put that in your test, please. So we have a number of extra diphthongs in British because they've dropped the R. And what are they? Let's go to the list. We went over them before. Let's do it again. Bottom of 39. For American ear, we get what in British? Ear, here, here. And for air, hair, 头发, we get hair, air. And then for higher, 雇佣, we get higher in American and in British, higher. It could be higher. You can do it carefully and slowly, but if you do it fast, it comes out ha, ha. Okay. And I have to mention one other thing. Say this in American. Say it in British. It's not here is unless you separate them with a big pause. You know that when I'm telling you things about pronunciation, I often tell you to link 母音开头的字前一个字最后一个音要连到下一个字作为它第一个音. Is that right? That's the linking rule. So in American we say, and in British we say here is. Here is. Do you hear the R? But British is not supposed to be a rhotic dialect. Now 它怎么变成 rhotic? 它怎么变成有儿化韵呢? Jerome? Exactly. Everybody note this rule. This is important, please. I know the bell is rung, but put it in your notes. If the final sound of a syllable is R, and the beginning sound of the next syllable is a vowel, Brits will pronounce the R normally. So, here is becomes here is in British. If it begins with a vowel, they will put the R in. That's called a linking R. We can call this a linking R. Well, why don't I take this off so I can use the quotes here? That's better. It's called a linking R. And I want to tell you one more thing before we break, because it's not only here that we're going to find it. Here's a famous phrase that I'll use as an example. Let's get the car out of the way. I know the Japanese make great cars, but we've got to get it out of the way. Say it in American. China and Japan. China and Japan. Say it in British. Can somebody volunteer so I can hear one voice? Somebody brave? Jerome, you want to do it? You could do it that way, but normally they say, listen carefully, China and Japan. China and Japan. 那不是矫枉过正吗？因为英式不是常常没有 R 吗？那这个地方 R 又回来了。可是这个地方有 R 吗？ No, but Brits often have it. And not only that, they deny that they have it. That's the funny part. China and Japan. China and Japan. Try it. Even with names. For example, President Ma, right? Ma 总统. I hear on the radio, they say, Mao is going to appear at a conference. President Mao is going to. Listen to ICRT, you will hear it all the time. That's the way Gavin Phipps says it. Hi, Gavin. Okay. So when we have, in some cases, not all vowels, usually it's a schwa. Usually it's a schwa. But there are other vowels where it might happen. When we link to another word starting with to the next word that starts with a vowel, to another word that starts with a vowel, we have, you can call it a linking R, but there was not an R there in the first place. We call this an intrusive R. And remember that I told you that a lot of allophonic differences that we have in a language, the speakers don't notice them at all. Like in Chinese, I told you, 万一那个 n 不见了，你们没有察觉到之前，对不对? At least everybody I've asked told me, oh, that's interesting. Yeah, you're right. 没有察觉到. Most Brits do not notice they are doing this. And that's why they will deny it later. And they will criticize other people when they hear it. I have many stories like this, but you get the idea. I have an experience with that I thought was kind of interesting. I was recording once. It was an English 教材 for children. And they got an Australian to record with me. An Australian speaking American. But this guy is 厉害到极点. When he was talking to me, just chatting, he was speaking Australian English. When we recorded, it was perfect American. 没有瑕疵. No 瑕疵 at all. Have you ever listened to Russell Crowe, the actor? He's also perfect. His American is perfect. 一点瑕疵都没有. He's really, really good. Maybe not a nice person, but he's really good with his accents. Yeah, I heard that he hits people and things. But, okay, he was recording in this absolutely perfect English. But then there was one sentence. He said, there's an umbrella in the trunk. There's an umbrella in the trunk. Trunk is 车子的那个行李箱. He said, there's an umbrella in the trunk. What was in the trunk? What did he have? He had an intrusive R. And so he just said it, and I stopped the recording. I said, you have an intrusive R. And he said, I have a what? And he said it again. I said, there's your R. He did not notice it at all. And his American was absolutely flawless, absolutely perfect. But this was under his radar. 他这个没有察觉到. Somebody who is so good, he missed that. So that tells you, when we're talking about allophones, 同位音的时候, native speakers very, very often have no awareness of them whatsoever. 一点感觉都没有. Okay, everybody got that? 什么? 我只有那个毛病, that's the only one. That was the only one. Because we were recording, they wanted it in an American accent. 那个也是师德啊，刚好就是我那篇文章不是放师德，那个也是师德的。When he was recording, there was no mistake at all. Perfect. It was absolutely perfect. And suddenly there was an umbrella in the trunk. 一定会跳一下，很奇怪。So yeah, 我没有一直挑他的毛病. That was the only one. Okay? Yeah, the only one. Anybody else have a comment or question or 怀疑什么事情? That's it. We're going to take a short break. A question that came up during the break. Karen asked if the R here was a kind of assimilation. I wouldn't call it assimilation. It definitely is a kind of linking because here is, in British, here is. If we don't link it with the R, what sound do we have between these words? We have a glottal stop there. You can avoid it, but it takes effort. Here is. It's almost impossible to get rid of that glottal stop if you don't have some kind of a linking sound. And how do Brits feel about glottal stops like that? Remember when we were talking about butter, some bread and butter, butter, 奶油, butter. What did we say about that in Cockney? What do other Brits feel about that? How do they feel about it? It sounds very low class, working class. A big insult in British is British thinking, not just English, is working class. So if it's working class, we don't consider it educated. They don't like glottal stops, although they use a lot of them. If it's obvious, if it sticks out, they don't like it because it suggests working class English. So they keep the R in there. I can't say that that's the reason, but that's one reason behind it. And what is the rule? I don't know the exact rule, but I know that it depends on the final vowel here. Some final vowels don't take intrusive R, but a schwa will. In China, 它最后一个音是不是一个 schwa? China, China, China and Japan. So with a schwa plus a word that starts with a vowel, you get an intrusive R. Not all the time, but it's very common. Okay? I think that was it. And then back to this. This is not a very consistent feature of KK. I felt that when I first learned it. Why should we use one symbol when the vowel is stressed and another when it's unstressed? Because we don't do that for any other vowel. We don't have a separate symbol for stressed ah and unstressed ah. We only do it for this sound. This sound, well, first of all, I believe the reason we do it is so that we can keep the correspondence between an American and British English a little closer. It's a little more convenient. It's a little more transparent this way. Bird, bird. 那个符号很像，这是英文，美式英文会加一个 R 而已，对不对？那这个 R 为什么不能放在那个有重音的音节？那这是自己设的一个规则，有一点 arbitrary。这个有一点 arbitrary。It's in KK. You can choose not to. 你可以决定没事，不要用那个，全部用这个。你先立下这个规定就可以了。这个规则。Any other questions before we continue? If it's not clear, if there's something that doesn't seem to make sense, if I've made a mistake, please tell me. I told that to my freshman English students this morning. I said, if I make a mistake, please tell me. He said, really? Of course. If you don't like interrupting in class, then come talk to me during break or put it in your notes or do something, but please do tell me. We all make mistakes. Remember, there is no learning without mistakes, and that applies to teachers like anybody else. So what I've learned is mainly from students' mistakes that I've observed, but you've certainly observed mistakes in me that have also helped me learn. Okay, we're in the middle of the paragraph at the top of 42. And we're talking about the end of the diphthong in these special diphthongs for British English, like here, ha, ha. And it says, some usually old-fashioned British English speakers also use a diphthong in words like, all right, in American, you can say poor, cure. But instead of poor, a lot of people say poor. He's really poor. You'll hear it. It's really, really common in American. Poor. He's really poor. If we're more formal, it's poor. Now, in British English, how do we say these words? Usually they say Paul, cure. Paul, cure. But it says if you're old-fashioned, you might say poor, cure. Or cure. Oh, yeah. Cure probably sounds a lot like poor. I know that poor is pronounced Paul. He's very Paul. And cure probably also 比较没有那么明显的一个 diphthong 的那个 off glide， 对，没有那么明显的schwa的那个 off glide。Okay? But if you're old-fashioned or speaking very formally, it would be poor, cure. And then in words like fire, higher, you can say, and I said this earlier, fire, higher, fire, higher. But in colloquial British, you'll probably say fire, higher. 是三母音跟双母音的差别。And it's in your book. You should be able to get it. Everything in 2.2, it says all the words are monosyllables except for ahoy. And ahoy is a greeting used on ships. At least it was in the past. So none of them contains both stressed and unstressed vowels. The most common unstressed vowel in English is the schwa. And not only that, it's not only the most common unstressed vowel, it is also the most common vowel in terms of frequency. 出现率最高的一个母音就是 schwa， 好像是30%左右。I've seen the number recently. I don't remember it exactly. You can check on the internet. But I think it's something like 30% or more of all English vowels 出现，就是每一次出现来算，schwa是最常听到的最多，频率最高的。It comes from Hebrew, because in Hebrew, I believe they have 3 kinds of reduced vowels, short reduced vowels. 希伯来语有3种类型的很短的 schwa， 3种类型。The word schwa comes from Hebrew， 那是其中之一叫做 schwa。经过德文 ，that's why we've got the SCH spelling， 那是德文的舍的拼法是 SCH。So we got it from Hebrew through German, and it's called a schwa, an unstressed vowel, and reduced. And it occurs at the ends of words like sofa, soda. Now, all of us are influenced by spelling. I said before that in 2nd grade, I didn't believe there was really a schwa. I thought it was soda, sofa. 我就不愿意承认那个是一个 schwa. Just like Alex didn't want to believe that an is not a diphthong. 他就是不愿意相信。我小时候也不愿意相信有 schwa 这回事。写的是 A， 念的应该是 A. But that's a schwa. You can hear it in the middles of words like emphasis. And emphasis, 后面那个 sis 对我来说，在我的发音里也是一个Everybody emphasis. Emphasis is okay for me. Emphasis 也可以. I think I use both. Demonstrate. Demonstrate, everyone? Demonstrate. Good. It can be at the beginning of a word, like around. Everyone? Around. Arise. And we use the stress mark symbol that they show in the book. You already know that from KK. In British English, it's usually the sole component of ER in words, like brother, brotherhood, simpler, which in British are brother, brotherhood, simpler. Right. I can hear my American accent, but never mind. In forms of American English with R-colored vowels, remember R-coloring? R-colored vowels 儿化韵的。或者儿化母音的，儿化元音也可以这么说。We have brother, brotherhood, simpler. As with the symbol that's the stressed version. 有重音记得是 3 plus the hook. A small hook symbolizes our coloring on the schwa symbol. And both schwa and the rhoticized schwa are very, very common vowels. And occurs very frequently in unstressed monosyllables when we are talking about 虚词. So in 虚词, we often have a schwa rather than a full vowel. For example, I'm going to the library. I'm going, I didn't say to, I said, I'm going to the library. I'm going to. We were practicing that in freshman English this morning. You really need to learn the schwa pronunciation of function words, because if you don't pronounce them with a schwa, what will happen? The sky will not fall. Okay, the sky will not fall. But what happens if you don't pronounce the vowel in function words as a schwa? I'm going to the library. The way my students say it sounds something like, usually something like, I am going to the library. I am going to the library. But what I say is, I'm going to the library. I'm going to the library. Now, if you use my rhythm with Taiwan pronunciation, what happens? I'll use my pronunciation, you use Taiwan pronunciation. Let's see what happens. Start with I'm going to the library. Go. I'm going to the library. Who finished first? Do you see that you have a lot of extra syllables at the end after I'm already finished? Well, you think 那只是快慢的问题，它不只是快慢。The thing is that in English, although some textbooks tell you it's just a myth, it is true. We have stress timing. The timing of our language is determined by the stress of this word to the stress of the next word and so on. So from one stress to the next stress to the next stress, 中间的那个间隔差不多长. Not exactly, but we like to keep the spaces between stresses somewhat even. So I'm going to the library. I'm going to the library. It slows the whole thing down. 变成那个节奏就会乱掉. So if you're not putting schwas in function words, 你的节奏就是不会像. And when the 节奏 is wrong, it's sort of like getting the wrong tone in Chinese. It confuses us a little bit. Because it's not important. We're not expecting something not important to get so much stress or to be a very clear vowel. Does everybody get it? As I told my freshman English students this morning, if you get it, could you please nod your head? Yeah, you understand what I said. So you need to start paying attention to function words in English very often. Probably most of the time we need a schwa and not a full vowel. So t instead of tu. Okay? Next, we've got here. He gave you other examples here. A book. If you have a foreigner or an English native speaker who doesn't have experience teaching, they might say a book. But it should be a book. Short, and it's a schwa. T, we mentioned, but, B-U-T, but. Instead of saying but. Unless we're still thinking, I'd like to go, but I can't. I'd like to go, but I. It's not, but I can't. It's, but I can't. And the 情态助动词 can. We don't usually say can unless we're stressing it. So, 我可以那么做. I can do it is Taiwan English, but I can do it. I can do it. And I think I've told you, we can reduce it all the way to just basically a glottal stop. I can do it. I can do it. I can do it. Okay, it's a nasalized glottal stop. All right, so start paying attention to that because it will help you get a rhythm that's closer to a native speaker's rhythm. It says some of the other vowels also occur in unstressed syllables, but because of differences in accents of English, it's more difficult to say which vowel occurs in which word. For example, nearly all speakers of English differentiate between the last vowels in Sophie, sofa, pity, patter. Well, it would be pata in British, pity, pata. But some accents have the vowel E, as in heed, at the end of Sophie, pity. In KK, for a final Y in spelling, you learn to use which vowel, symbol? You use I. No, like pity, pity. You will write it like this. But from now on, we're going to write it like E. So don't use this one for a final Y in spelling. It's possible, and in conservative British, pity. It's possible, but we're just going to use E. And it says, others have it as in hid, sofa, pity. And then most accents take the vowel in the second syllable of taxis, make it different from that in Texas. They're extremely different for me. Everybody, 很多计程车, taxis. Okay, 德州, Texas. What vowel do I have in the second syllable of Texas? It's a schwa, definitely a schwa. And this is a little bit 题外话, but we're talking about 美国地名 and about British pronunciation. Let me get rid of some of this. I can think of two place names that are different in British, and they used to make me laugh, but now I'm used to it. All right? This is in Texas. Since we're talking about Texas, maybe that's why I thought of it. How do we say it? Houston. Very good. That's American. Houston. Hugh. And this one? Very American. Very good. Los Angeles. In British, many say Houston. and Los Angeles. I know. Don't laugh too hard. My teacher's watching. Okay? Los Angeles. So you'll hear those different. And it's my country. So, but then we pronounce their place names very funny too. Right? Like Texas. And the letter X, in spelling we write an X, but how would we write it in KK or in the IPA? K, S. Don't just say the sound. I know it's X already. I need to know how to write it. So it's KS. It's two separate consonants, two separate sounds. Although it often gets simplified into S in Taiwan English. So exercise. Some people say exercise instead of exercise. Watch that. Okay, you should start doing some transcription exercises. Not now. Next is consonant and vowel charts. So far we've been using the consonant and vowel symbols mainly as ways of representing the contrasts that occur among words in English, because we are looking for how many what English has? Vowels and consonants, but that's not the word I'm after right now. The ones that represent contrasts, that give us different words with different meanings. We want to know how many phonemes English has. That's what we're working on. Because this unit, after all, is about, go back to the title. Remember I told you that titles are very important? Phonology. And in phonology, we want to know, first of all, how many phonemes are they and what are there and what are they? So keep that in mind. We wanted to look for sounds that contrast with each other, that will produce words that mean different things, different words entirely. We can also think of these symbols in a different way. And this idea takes a little 转弯，有点脑筋要转弯一下. We can view these symbols as shorthand descriptions of the articulations involved. We're so used to, at least in Taiwan, most of you, are so used to the KK symbols, it's hard to think about them philosophically or analytically because you're so used to them. But instead of just viewing them as symbols that represent contrasting sounds in English, we can think of them as shorthand for descriptions of articulations like we had in the test. For example, P can be an abbreviation for number 1, state of the vocal folds, voiceless, right? Do you see what we're doing here? Next, place of articulation, bilabial, and third, manner of articulation. So do you see? P, actually, we can think of as how many pieces of information? 3 pieces of information. P, 因为很方便，我们就综合就那个3个 bytes of information into one symbol. We can view the IPA symbols in this way. Everybody got that? It's a subtle difference. 不只是说这个跟这个不一样，而是说每一个 symbol 代表这3个 bytes of information. Okay? For L, what do we have? State of the vocal folds? Good. And place of articulation? Stop there, right? And then manner of articulation? Lateral approximant. We can arrange them in a very organized way on a chart. And you need to be able to reproduce this chart because you probably have to do it for the test. So memorize the chart, be able to write it exactly like you see it on page 43 for the consonants. And we'll have the vowels after that. So why did we not put the affricate symbols there? They are contrastive in English. They are phonemes in English. You need to keep that in mind. Ch and j are phonemes. But we didn't put them on the chart because what kind of a chart is it? Look at the caption for the chart or the title where it says figure 2.1, the second word. It's phonetic. Therefore, why didn't we put ch and j in there? Because ch and j are what kinds of symbols? They're composite, right? So, 等于是复合的, you could say compound symbols. They have 2 parts to them, the stop and the fricative. So we can just put 2 of these sounds together to produce ch and j by rule. We don't need to actually put them in the chart, and it was not done here. And it says, note that if we were to include them, we would have the problem of deciding whether to put them in the palatoalveolar column, the place of the fricative element, or in the alveolar column, because T is an alveolar and sh is, place of articulation is, for sh, palatoalveolar. So 到底要放在 alveolar 那里还是 palatoalveolar? 要我的话 I would put it under palatoalveolar, 因为其实那个 T 的位置会被它影响。So ch, I have no problem with putting it under palatoalveolar. He says it's a problem, but I don't think it's a problem. And so we avoid that problem completely by listing only stops and fricatives, no affricates. So look at that chart carefully, but spend more time on your own. This is not going to be enough for you. You'll notice something funny about the symbol for the w sound. What do you notice about it? It's bilabial and velar both. So it appears how many times on the chart? 2. And the first time, further to the left, it appears in what form? Typographically, in what form? How did they present it? In parentheses. They don't want you to think it's a different W. It's the same W, but it has 2 places of articulation. Another thing you need to know for the test. W has 2 places of articulation. What are they? Bilabial and velar. Okay? Bilabial, we have a lot of lip rounding with W. We are on the next page, and we're going to make it. We're going to make it. Next figure, we have a vowel chart. This is the vowel space. You can call it a vowel chart. We often call it the vowel space. And that's the shape of it. You also need to memorize this and be able to put all of the vowels for American English in the right place. I won't test you especially on British English right now, maybe in the future, but you need to know where the vowels go approximately for American English. So memorize these 2 charts, practice drawing them, because when you write them, you've got muscle memory. It will help you remember them better in addition to the visual image. So the symbols we've been using for the contrasting vowels can, in the same way as we did with consonants, be used as a kind, or viewed as a kind of shorthand descriptions of different vowel qualities. We have problems because we've been using the symbols pretty loosely. They have different values for different accents. For example, wedge, right? It's in American, it's what? Upside down V? In American, it sounds like what? 到 V 怎么念? And in British? It's more like cup. All right. But we are just going to use this as sort of a generalized representation of English vowels. 我们现在不计较美式英式的差别，它大致就是这个样子。They've been placed within a quadrilateral, which is a 四边形, not a square. They're not equal lengths, the sides. And the rest you know, E for a high vowel, I for mid-high, etc. We have only 2 dimensions of vowel quality. What is missing when we have only 2 dimensions for vowel quality? Which feature, which is very important, is missing? Amy? There's a 3rd feature that we need to describe vowels. Jamie? Someone else had it. A guy. Yeah, stop. You got it. Not or. It's rounding. We don't have rounding marked in this chart. So with only two dimensions, 我们就少一个. We're missing a very important piece of information. Is it spread lips or rounded? Rounded 的相反是 spread. S-P-R-E-A-D. Spread. In Chinese it's 展唇. 发展的展唇, 嘴唇的唇, 展唇. So is it rounded or spread? Or maybe neutral. For some of them, you don't really have spread lips or rounded lips. It's neutral. That's another description we could use. Okay, actually, Stanley, did you have something in mind besides rounding?
Pardon?
You said it could be rounding or, and then I cut you off. What else did you have in mind?
Rounding and unrounding.
Oh, and unrounding. Okay, that's the same thing then.
Okay.
That's the same thing. But there is another thing he mentions here. Second paragraph, page 44. It also does not show length. 长度也没有标出来. So those are two important pieces of information that we do not see on the chart. Number 1, rounding. Number 2, length. And the vowel and consonant charts enable us to understand the remark made in chapter 1 when we said that the sounds of English involve about how many different gestures of the tongue and lips? Last paragraph on 44. How many different gestures do we count of the tongue and lips for the sounds of English? 25. And the consonant chart has 23 of these. But only 11 basic gestures of the tongue and lips are needed to make these different sounds. So we have many different kinds of gestures, but we really only need 11 to make the different sounds. For example, p, b, m are all made with the same lip gesture. D, t, d, n, all with the same tongue gesture, as are k, g, ng, all the same tongue gesture, back of the tongue touching the soft palate. There are some slight differences, but we'll just ignore those for now, it says. 4 more gestures are required for the sounds in the fricative row. You need to pay attention to this part, because in the exercises, they're going to ask you questions about how many gestures. Okay? So here's where you'll find the answer. Mark this answer to one of the questions in the exercises. 4 more gestures are required for sounds in the fricative row. Let's look at the fricative row. 3rd row on page 43, f, v, f, v, dang, dang. To make all those gestures, all the gestures for the fricative sounds, we need 4 more. And then 3 more for the approximants, for the y and the w. And then another one for the lateral approximant, making 11 in all. 它怎么样算到11？它这里就一个一个跟你讲。I'm not going to go over it in further detail. Figure it out yourself. You need it for the exercises. All right, the vowel chart has how many symbols? Now, remember the question we asked earlier? How many vowels do we have in English? That's the answer. How many? We have 14. We have 14, and there's a different gesture for each vowel. So 14 vowels, 14 gestures. So we consider each one to have a separate gesture. But as we have seen, accents of English vary. So how many gestures would be needed for a variety of English that merges a and a? Go ahead, Jerome. 13. 减掉一个就是，其中2个音合并了，14减1. That was a toughie. Okay. So we say about 25 different gestures of the tongue and lips for the sounds of English. So 这个是要看你的口音来定。And all of these sounds also require gestures of the other 3 main components of the speech mechanism. Remember? Speech mechanism, not mechanism, mechanism. Some of you will still get it wrong, I bet. Everyone, speech mechanism. Speech mechanism. All right, repeat after me so we practice. The airstream process. The airstream process. Okay, and what does that mean? The air coming up from our lungs, right? The phonation process. Go. That means voicing or not. And then the oronasal process. If it's an oral sound or a nasal sound. The airstream process involves pushing air out of the lungs for all the sounds of English. So the airstream process is needed for all the sounds of English. 没有例外，都需要. That's our power source. Phonation is responsible for gestures of the vocal folds, voiced versus voiceless sounds. An oronasal process concerns whether the velum is raised or lowered to distinguish oral from nasal sounds. All right, we're in phonology now, just about to finish up. It says at the beginning of the chapter we discussed another reason why it is only approximately true that in our transcriptions of English, the symbols have the values shown in figures 2.1 and 2.2. In the style of transcription we have been using so far, we have used symbols that show just the contrasting sounds of English, the phonemes. So for phonemes, we don't want to pay attention to phonetic detail. We only want to know if this sound is a contrast with another sound. If I use bat, is it a different word from pat? Yes, it is. Those are different phonemes. That's what we're concerned about so far. But now, from this point on, we'll use slash marks if we are talking about phonemes. If it's phonemic, that's the adjective. If it's a phonemic transcription, then we use slashes. We use slash marks. And please tell all your friends this, because most people don't seem to know it in Taiwan. Teachers don't know it. They don't explain it in English class. And we'll use brackets when we're doing a phonetic transcription. The actual sound, if we're representing the actual sound, we use brackets. Some sounds will have different values in different contexts. For example, T has many different realizations, 呈现, realizations. In tap, what is it? We're in the second paragraph under phonology on 45. In tap, how can we describe t? It's a 第三行, a voiceless, alveolar stop. But in eighth or eighth, it could be interdental, right? I don't make a T, by the way. This is not a good example for me. Watch my mouth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8, it's a normal T. For eighth, I have no T at all. And I've asked many native speakers. Many of them don't say eighth. They say eighth. 那个 T 完全没有. But he's assuming we have it. If we have it, then it's eighth. The T becomes interdental. All right, tenth is a better example. The N becomes interdental. Tenth, my N is interdental. This T is more accurately called a voiceless dental stop. Voiceless interdental. Let's make it interdental stop. And we'll have a special symbol for transcribing it. I'll tell you right now. It looks like a tooth. 好像 bpmf 的 m 这个符号代表齿音。So if a sound is dentalized, 本来不是齿音或者齿间音，可是被齿化了 ，OK？ 它变成一个齿音。We use the dental symbol, 一个 bpmf 的 m 字。So that's the symbol for a dental pronunciation. It's dentalized. In both British and American, the T in bitten is accompanied by a glottal stop. Bitten. Bitten. And we have a special symbol for that right here, glottal stop. Glottal stop, one of the purposes or one of the ways a glottal stop is used in English is as an allophone of T, as in bitten. And for most Americans and many younger British speakers, the T in catty is not catty, it's a tap, right? Short D that cannot be lengthened, catty. And by the way, many Brits have trouble with that. They think it's a real D. They'll say caddy. But these words contrast, even though they're very similar. Catty 是女生对女生很尖酸的态度，跟那个讲话。But, oops, 打高尔夫球的时候，有个小弟来帮你背你的那个球杆，那个的高尔夫球杆，那个叫 caddy, to carry. So caddy, caddy. 不一样. They're very similar. In speech, we can't tell the difference, but if you slow down, this is caddy, cannot be pronounced caddy, cannot be. But this one can. That's the difference. One can be lengthened, the other can't. The other difference is this is a longer vowel. Caddy, caddy. 这个 l 比较长，因为 this is voiced. Okay? What else do we have here? All of these are different sounds. All of these different sounds are part of the T phoneme. That's a 俗称 or a popularized way of saying, a simpler way of saying that they are what of this phoneme. 它是 T 的不同的呈现. And we call those what? Allophones. In Chinese, it's 同位音. Just like in chemistry, we have 同位素. 同位音. They have the same 音位, but they sound different. We have another useful word here, and that's phones. And in Chinese, phones are called what? 音值, the actual value of the sound. That means in speech, how you actually say it is the 音值. That's the phone. Sometimes you will hear 音值 used for allophones. 它实际的发音就是它的 phone, 就是音值. 可是呢，我们就知道它是属于哪一个音位的时候 we'll say it's an allophone, for example, of T. 同位音是 T 的同位音. Okay? None of these variations is enough to change the meaning of a word. And that all these variations occur in citation speech and are not simply the result of failing to hit the target when speaking clearly. So, 不只是说讲话讲得快就不小心讲的有一点那个跟原来的 target 不一样，它实际上就是这么念的。So those are separate allophones of the same phoneme. In this case, T, which has a lot of allophones. And we can use other symbols to represent different sounds in different contexts. So L and R normally stand for voiced approximants, but in words like ply and try. Ply means 运作 or to travel, like to ply the oceans. The L becomes what? Normally, L is voiced, but here it becomes, because of the P sound, which is voiceless, it becomes assimilated. And vowel sounds also vary. The E in heed is usually different from the E in heel. L's after a vowel really change the vowel. 所以母音后面有 L， 那个母音一定会有蛮大的变化。R 跟 L 在母音后面都会使那个母音产生蛮大的变化。So listen, heed, heel. 一本来是很纯的母音 E, not like he. But heed, is it still pure? Heed. Is the vowel still pretty pure? You don't think so? Heed. Heed. Compared to heel. Which one sounds purer? Yeah. Huh? Pure. 比较没有变化，一直维持一样的母音的那个值，那个性质。Heed. Heed. You don't see my mouth moving, but watch. Heel. Heel. There's a big change. So E is pure with the D at the end, not so pure with the L at the end. Okay, we'll get through it quickly. They're talking about the tap rule at the top. They're talking about how we mark dental sounds. I already showed you. I also gave you the symbol for the tap, which I don't like to call flap. Please call it tap. For width, we can put a dental symbol because of the sound. These extra symbols like this, which shows that a sound is dental, these are called, we've already had the word, what is it? Dia what? Everyone, diacritics. Diacritics. All of these extra symbols are called diacritics. We add them to show the small variations in pronunciation of a sound in context. And these variations are called allophones. We already covered that. And we also talked about the length mark. We're not going to go over that. At the bottom of 46 to 47, they're talking about the length mark. He used to use that in one of the editions. It caused a lot of confusion. I remember I was discussing it with a phonetician friend. Neither of us liked it, so they got rid of it. But they didn't get rid of all of them. 所以有时候有一些印刷错误，他们因为一直在改他的做法，所以有时候他那个改得不彻底。And then R, we are using the upside down R. 有一个版本我就很喜欢，我不想再改了。We're using the upside down R, 就这样子。Some dictionaries don't. Get used to it, that's all. All right, we're in the middle of 47. Students sometimes also make the mistake of thinking that allophones are written with diacritics while phonemes are written with simple phonetic symbols. Consider, though, the pronunciation of the word letter. For most people, most speakers of American English, there's no T in this. There's no T sound in this word at all. It's the. And so we use the tap symbol. 所以我平常的 transcription 我都用 tap. There's no diacritic, it's a special symbol. The term broad transcription is often used to designate a transcription that uses the simplest possible set of symbols. Start paying attention. You've got words in bold, right? They're in the test. I can tell you right now. So if we want to use the simplest possible set of symbols, we're doing what kind of a transcription? Phonemic and broad. All right, it's phonemic. We don't want to show details. We just want to show distinctive sounds. If we want to show detail, we call it what kind of transcription? Narrow. I don't say narrow. There's nothing wrong with it. It's East Coast. Narrow and phonetic. It's a phonetic transcription. It's a more phonetic transcription. It's a narrow transcription. And he's showing you some examples of broad versus narrow transcription. Please read that yourself. So every transcription should be seen as having two aspects. One is often not explicit. There's the phonetic text itself, and at least implicitly, there is a set of conventions for interpreting the text. So even if we write water like this, you know that if you are transcribing the speech of an American, that T is almost always going to be a tap. We just apply the rule in our heads. Sometimes we want to use a very simple phonemic transcription. That means we have to apply the rules ourselves when you read it. We're not going to mark it. We're not going to say that's a tap, give you a special symbol. If it's a very broad phonemic transcription, we're not giving you the detail. You must know the rules and apply them yourself. Okay? That's it. Okay, we're on the last page of the chapter, and the bell's going to ring in 2 minutes. This will also be in the test, anything in bold, remember. On a few occasions, a transcription cannot be said to imply the existence of rules accounting for allophones. Sometimes we don't know the rules for allophones. Like in this word. Maybe you've never seen the word in written form before. And I say, I need a drink of water. I need some water. If you have never studied English, will you automatically know that that really is a T? When you hear water, 你听就一定知道那个一定是个 T 吗? If you haven't learned English before? So all you can do is write down the tap and say, maybe this belongs to a different phoneme, or maybe it's a phoneme by itself. Like better, water, 可能是一个独立的 phoneme. You don't know. If it's a new language to you, you don't know. In that situation, all we can do is write down the phonetic sound. 它听起来怎么样就写怎么样。还没有归纳出它属于哪一个 phoneme 的情况之下 we have a name for that kind of transcription, which is, everyone? Systematic phonetic transcription. Please memorize it and practice writing it, because some of you forget how to spell it, or you forget the words and you write something similar but totally wrong. So please, anything in bold, practice writing it and memorize it. And it says, in practice, it's hard to make a transcription so narrow that it shows all the details. There is no end to the amount of detail you can put into a transcription. This is 没完没了的事情. You have to say basta at some point. What does basta mean? Spanish studiers? Who's it, the Spanish learners? Basta means 够了. So at some point you say, I'm not going to put any more detail. 那 detail 太细了，我不要记了。美式英语我们也接这个西班牙文这个字 basta 够了不要了。So at some point you just have to say no more detail. It's too much. It's exhausting. Putting down a lot of phonetic detail is exhausting. You only do it if you have a very good reason to do it. And sometimes a transcription may not imply the existence of rules accounting for allophones because in the circumstances nothing was known about the rules. 你可能当时完全不知道这个语言的规则，所以你只好记音。And that's an impressionistic transcription. So what's the difference between the two? A transcription that shows the allophones. Actually, 我刚刚讲的不是很对，我们就再回头一下。Systematic phonetic transcription, 它是有系统的。这个 imply you already know the allophonic rules. 刚刚讲的不太对。So if you already know the allophonic rules, then it's systematic. A systematic phonetic transcription. 当你不知道这些 allophone 的规则的情况之下 then it's just an impressionistic transcription. 凭印象而已。We don't know the rules. Okay, 所以前面稍微修正一下。Finally, we hope this brief survey of different kinds of transcription makes plain that there is no such thing as the IPA transcription of a particular utterance. Sometimes one wants to make a detailed phonetic transcription. Other times, it is more convenient to make a... Actually, I stressed the wrong word, not wants. One wants to make a detailed phonetic transcription. At other times, it is more convenient to make a phonemic transcription. 对，刚刚中音放错了。Sometimes one wants to point out a particular phonetic feature, such as vowel length. Other times, we don't care about the vowels. We've got 5 vowels. They're very clear. Never mind the vowels. They don't have a lengthened and a shortened version, or we don't care about it. In that case, we may want to put in some details of the consonants. So, IPA transcriptions take many forms. As I've said before, transcription implies choices, decisions. Always when you make a transcription, you have to make some decisions and some choices. There is no absolute correct form. It depends on your purpose. We finished the chapter. I had to push it along, and that's what happens when we want to hurry. I start summarizing, and you don't get as much chance. But at some point, I had to say basta. We had to finish the chapter. So next time, which is next Monday, what do we have to do? We'll do the performance exercises in class, and we're going to mark the exercises. And if you look at letter J, okay, that's just do what it says, basically. Yeah, that's not a problem. There was something I wanted to tell you about. Hang on. We're not going to go into the detail for E under the performance exercises. We're only going to read the things that he provides there. We just don't have the time. We may start doing it another time in the semester. We may try to do transcriptions of an unfamiliar language. That will take more time. So right now, we just need to get to chapter 3. So next time, performance exercises, written exercises, and make sure that you've read the web pages that I've told you. In this test, I am also going to test you on the content of the web pages. All the web pages that we have covered so far, except for writing Chinese IPA, writing a transcription of Chinese in IPA. 那个我还不考. But everything else I will. 拼音, cat, quat, and especially the 3 tutorials. Those are all within the 范围 of the test. Okay? Questions? Anybody have a question? Okay, we finished almost on time. We'll see you Monday. And maybe on Facebook.